Welcome to another session of Rifts for Savage Worlds. We'll have a little bit of more specific information on all of the sources that we're using at the end of the video. But until then, let's get into it. The last week we had a short hiatus because our video person was unavailable. The party did go on a short mission from Truth or Consequences, New Mexico, over to Tularosa, New Mexico, to investigate some missing townsfolk. It turns out it was a murder wraith, which is a juicer who is returned to life in undeath, who was leading a group of ghouls that were killing and turning those townsfolk, creating more and more ghouls.
Yay!
Fortunately for the party, they were able to track it quickly and engage during the day. And after puppeting numerous ghouls, as well as raising some of the bodies of those who had been slain by the ghouls to fight against their killers, the heroes emerged victorious and cleansed the land of the abomination that was the murder wraith. They were able to, and then they were able to make their way home, back to, or not home, but back to Truth or Consequences with little distraction, which took them the better part of a day.
Sir Barry's Fish is very proud of you guys for doing such a good job and making it back.
Yes,
so I wasn't here by myself having to deal with this stupid train.
Sir Barry's Fish wakes up in the morning and is told that the party has a mission, and he would have met with Sister Stevens, who is a Psystalker Cyber Knight, or no, Psystalker Burster, and she would have been very basically would have asked Barry's Fish for help, and Barry's Fish, being the badass noble that he is, wouldn't have been able to say no. And Mr. Royal would have also mentioned that if the party was unwilling to take this job, then he would have other jobs, but they would have been of less reputable moral intent. So the rest of so the party went and performed that job, and most of the other ne'er-do-wells who had been gathered to help you with your robbery of the ghost stagecoach, they would have also been sent on various errands. Mr. Royal points out that while you're staying in the area, it's best to be a good guest, and so he's doing his best to help out the locals in the area so that they will, it's nice to not be hated where you're staying.
Indeed.
So Barry's Fish, he is after the party leaves, he is going to gather you and your brother, as well as a couple other people who look like just fairly basic, like, wilderness technicians. He escorts you to a sort of like a building that's largely intact. There's a fair amount of electronic equipment in there. Hollow recorders, view screens, things like that.
Yeah.
The technicians are finishing up some of their work, plugging in all of this, and your brother Junaluska is sort of pacing, kind of like when you get in there, kind of gives you a look like, yeah, just basically a look like, go sit over there because I'm over here.
Yeah.
And kind of continues pacing. Royal is sitting patiently next to the technicians as they finish up, and says, all right, it appears that they have finished their preparations. We can get down to planning. As you have been informed, we are intending to the job that we have been hired to do involves chasing down and acquiring the contents of this so-called ghost stage. In preparation, I retained the services of local bandit gang to perform reconnaissance on the supposed route of this stage, as well as to verify that we do have some idea of the schedule involved. Unfortunately, they failed to return from their mission, but fortunately, another team was on site to record their reconnoiter.
Oh, good. I assume you found some sort of pattern in these deliveries, or wherever they're doing.
Yes, we've been keeping track. We've had full sensor readings of the entire valley where it has been passing. We're referring to it as Ash Valley. It's a very dusty, alkali valley, and we've been keeping track of it. I've been paying some of the locals to watch and record, hence the recording of the reconnaissance team that was returned to us. And it seems to have a given schedule, although sometimes that schedule is inconsistent in the way that we know that now we have verified that all of the scheduled trips that we know of will happen. However, there are others that may happen in the intermediary time, and not exactly sure why.
All right. Are you planning to hit one of the regular scheduled ones, or try to get one of the other ones that you're unpredictable, or are you not really caring?
I am unsure. I do not have enough information. I believe that it would be, if we know where it's going and we know when it's going to be there, it would be easier to trap one that we know is going to be on schedule than one that may appear at any given time.
You getting all this? As I look over at Junaluska.
And he said, and he kind of like,
I'm just making a jab that he's kind of dumb.
yeah, and he kind of like narrows his eyes and he says, we should trap it if we can. And if we know where it's going to be a lot easier to trap it. He says, sort of like, almost like saying it to you, like, you know, like, I know where you are, I know where you're going to be. Like, he's kind of throwing back a jab, but his is a lot more.
I know. Yep.
But then he kind of like, but he does kind of at that, he does kind of like sit down and take a deep breath and kind of like chill for a second. Like, and the technicians are going to start playing this recording. And while they're doing so, this recording was taken through like, you know, like some sort of sensor targeting system. So it has like various readings on the screen that, you know, would have been on the heads up display of whatever was recording this.
Mm-hmm.
So you see, to start with, you see a fairly barren, make sure I've got, yes, you see a fairly barren canyon, going mostly east to west.
Okay.
Several hundred yards, probably 200 to 300 yards, kind of from the center to the edge on both sides of this, you know, kind of canyon, long kind of valleys type canyon. And as you're actually, that's double those ranges. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm thinking inches and not yards.
Yep.
And you can see the scan, you know, it scans from east to west, and it finally gets, you know, the technicians fast forward. there's a few things that pop up of note. It seems to be a few locals, like what appear to be like, maybe locals just kind of wandering through the area. But after a few hours, all the way to the far east, you see kind of a little bit of a dust cloud and kind of a faded white kind of blur. At which point in time, the sensor targeting system ends up. Where did I put that? Okay, maybe I didn't put it in. But anyway. Oh yeah, no, I did. So you see emerging, kind of coming along, something. It zooms in and looks kind of like that. Can you see on the screen?
I do see it.
It is floating like a hover vehicle. You can see readouts that it's traveling roughly, 50, 60 miles an hour. You're at a far enough range. It appears that the viewer is roughly a mile, maybe a mile and a half away, relative to kind of the path. But it's traveling along.
Is it like the size of a bus?
It's probably the size of like a Suburban.
Gotcha.
Or like a van, like like a big, like a transit van.
Moving.
Like an air, not quite like an airport van, but like a school van. Like.
Yep.
And it starts traveling, and not long after it's focused on the screen, you kind of see a little indicator from kind of the edge of the screen, and then a pan over to a fairly sizable group of fast-moving hover vehicles and wheeled vehicles. Appears to be a bandit gang. Several hover bikes, a hover car, some motorcycles, an ATV, and even like a robot horse. So they quickly overtake this hover vehicle. But in the process, several things happen. When they get within 800 yards, or about a half a mile, there is sort of some activity around the stage, the ghost stage. And from the readings, you can see that it has some sort of like energy field that activates once the bandits get within about half a mile. Some of this stuff is being extrapolated kind of on a separate screen that the tech is like kind of like keeping track of while this video is playing. At roughly, once they get within 600 yards, roughly, the stage begins to increase its speed steadily and starts to take sort of evasive maneuvers while maintaining a specific path. And essentially, once it starts taking evasive maneuvers, one of the techs puts an overlay of its previous paths. And so there's just like a series of parallel lines that show the paths that it has traveled before. And it's essentially kind of making like a sine curve along those paths. When they get within about 400 yards is when things start to really happen, at which point in time the tech starts to slow things down. They get within 400 yards, emerging almost directly in front of them from some sort of like dimensional portal are 3 humanoid robots of substantial size, probably 10, 12 feet tall, difficult to get scale at range. But they essentially appear and immediately take flight and begin firing on, the smallest targets available. Immediately taking out a guy on a motorcycle and a guy, and a hover bike. So when this happens, the bandit gang kind of like breaks off into 3 different groups. One that's like sort of continues to head towards the hover, the ghost stage, and then 2 that kind of like take evasive maneuvers and work together to attack these flying robots. So they're able to actually like kind of get one of them, the hover car and the ATV, both focus fire with what appear to be missiles on one of these flying robots. And they're able to hit it, and the explosion happens, but sort of about halfway through the explosion, the robot itself, clearly disabled, just essentially teleports back to wherever it came from, or just sort of, teleports out. And there are some readings, and the tech mentions that they took some readings on the teleportation, and it appears to be technological. Didn't appear like it appears that there appears to be some sort of like, it appears to be technological from what they can. But while they continue after the 2, the fast-moving team that's trying to get to the ghost stage, when they get within 200 yards, directly in front of them, emerging from a portal, is a single, even larger robot that has a series of weapons on it. It immediately opens fire and destroys all but one of the speeders that is chasing after the ghost stage, and then begins to focus fire on the other vehicles that are still engaging with the flying robots, taking out several, and the team that's distraction and trying to take out the flying robots does end up taking out one more flying robot, but loses most of both of their big vehicles in the process. And finally, the one speeder that's flying towards that gets close to the ghost stage, it actually gets alongside it. The passenger tries to jump onto the ghost stage, but appears to be essentially burned and knocked back, like knocked off somehow. It maybe like, didn't grab on or something. Pretty clearly killed, considering the speeds that they're traveling. So the driver then takes what looks like kind of a magnetic limpet mine and tries to throw it at the stage. But the mine itself bounces back and magnetizes to the speeder and subsequently explodes, killing the driver. As that is happening, the single remaining flying robot and the giant robot finish off the remaining bandits, and subsequently, and then just quickly, teleport out, leaving nothing really but smoldering wrecks. And let's see if there's anything else. And so, yeah, and that's pretty much the end of that particular encounter. Here, let's see if there's. I have some pictures here. Yeah. There, that's kind of there's the little robot and kind of the bigger one. The little ones are kind of just, humanoid. They look like they're maybe as big as a Samson. But they can definitely fly. And so after kind of that all happens, then it just shows a fast forward feed, like moving at incredibly high fast forward. And then it shows basically, like several days later, the stage travels past the same direction along the same line. No one bothers at this time, and it just continues about its business.
They obviously aren't worried about somebody knows their route and them changing it. They're perfectly happy with their route, despite being attacked.
It seems like, yeah.
Yeah, otherwise
Um,
the previous bandit attack there was going to be a waste. Just ruined everything for everybody if they decided, well, we're not going to use this route anymore.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, and and Mr. Royal says, yeah, there were many unknowns, but a lot of things have been verified. Unfortunately, the bandits were not alive to cash in on the rather substantial payday that I would have provided simply for reconnaissance.
Well, of course.
Their greed, I believe, was their downfall. It's friendly on my wallet, but not friendly in the grand scheme.
And I clearly don't recognize the design of any of those robots. I'm assuming that I don't, and that I ask if they have identified the manufacturer of any of those.
And the techs are both shrug. We have no idea. I mean,
yeah, and I figured that
they point. Go ahead.
I said I figured that was the answer, but
they say we've figured a couple things out. Namely that the teleportation that they're doing is technological in nature. Mr. Royal was able to acquire the services of a mystic. No, not a mystic, a ley line walker. Yeah, because was able to acquire the services of a ley line walker during during that observation, and the ley line walker sensed no magical teleportation, nor any nearby teleportational disturbances. It's not exactly sure how it works, but it's beyond anything that we have.
Yeah,
and
I don't think anybody in
the weapon
Resurse
systems
has
are
that kind of tech. So
yeah.
This
Although
would be
the
something
weapon systems are comparable.
The CS would probably love to have some teleportation technology, so can't let them have that. I think to
They
myself,
do say it does. It
Oh,
does.
I just said
it
it out
is
loud.
curious.
Yeah.
It is curious that the destroyed and disabled robot, the two of the flying robots that were destroyed or disabled, both teleported back before crashing to the ground. Curious that they would not want to leave any of their own remains while not bothering to do anything about the scattered remains, which you would have noticed from the time lapse. The scattered, the burnt out husks and stuff would have been scavenged pretty quickly by the locals. Like they would have stripped down, the ATV that got its, driver's compartment cored out with a laser beam. They would have, dragged it off and cut it up, and leaving the Ash Valley just as clean and ashy as it was before.
Well, I would like to ask these eggheads here. I think they know a little bit of these readings. If they see anything in that data that could be used to slow them down or keep them from teleporting away or whatever. Can we disable this ghost stage with some scientifically mumbo jumbo that Barry's Fish doesn't know the terminology for?
Sure. They would guess that most of the technology, the weapons seem fairly comparable to our conventional weapons. It's just that they're, more highly concentrated on individual units. It does seem that they're not. Their actions and patterns and strategies and tactics would suggest that they're not being piloted by living beings, or if they are being piloted by living beings, they're beings that are driven by logic and but they don't appear to be critical thinking. They're they appeared, they basically they appeared, they conquered, and then they went back with no ado. The fact that and he points out the fact that the giant robot didn't even bother with the speeder that got close to the hover car or to the ghost stage. It essentially saw it as not even a threat. But they're not even they're not sure. I mean, it would the fact that the bandits were able to take out two of the robots with fairly limited resources would suggest that they're not invincible.
Oh no.
But they have no idea what the field is is around that ghost stage.
Well, I could certainly try to disrupt it, but our flying friend might be very useful in that. So when he gets back from his little mission, maybe he has some ideas.
Yeah, good call.
Even though he's not in our session today, and we'll have
Well,
some excuse
no,
where he
but I
can't be
mean,
here. But
this will be kind of like planning and maybe setup, like
yeah,
because you can totally chase it down Billy the Kid style, and you can set traps, and you could like you can do a lot of things knowing the schedule. So like, but Junaluska just like kind of like you don't know anything, do you? To the technicians, and they're like, well, we didn't really have much to, and he just like scoffs and looks at Mr. Royal and says, you could have paid for better help, and just storms out. And you can hear him yelling at some of his lackeys. It's pretty clear that some of the Federation of Magic goons that came along are kind of his, not necessarily his lackeys, but they're with him.
Yeah.
And Royal shrugs and says, well, looks like the planning's left to you.
Well, brother never really was that bright.
No, but he's quite a warrior from what I understand. Dangerous if left unchecked.
Well, things get out of control. I will not let him become a problem.
And he nods. That's why you're here. But yeah, what like he would go ahead.
So I would if there's anybody else that came with us that might have other opinions that would understand some of that data, I'd try to get them to look at it. But if they've already had a chance to look at it, then I'm going to see if I can get some. If they've got any even crudely drawn like maps of this canyon corridor and stuff, so we can maybe start thinking about if we were going to set up ambushes or where we'd put some sort of trap.
Sure.
I'd just be getting all that kind of data in the right hands to help make that decision, and then be waiting patiently for Mary Spike and Midnight to make it back safely.
We can kind of handwave some of the preparation here, because they'll get back at like mid-afternoon, like 5-6 o'clock. So everyone is back now. You've been making some preparations that we can do in a flashback montage
if it is necessary. Yep.
Yes, and I will I'll make a little picture here of the canyon. This is not to scale.
It's all good.
Not to scale.
I'm zoomed in way too far.
Yeah, it's not very big. It's not a very big one. I think it's only 15, 30. Yep. So we'll go with an ashy background.
So while you're drawing that, so things you made it back in one piece, Mary?
More or less.
More or less. Well, that's good.
Yeah, Spike got a little hit in the noggin.
Yeah. I no more crazy than I was before.
Well, that's good. That's real good then.
I say.
Look like you haven't lost any of your colors, so I think you're doing all right. Well, we're in a quite pickle here. Don't really know that much about those that we're going after, but they definitely have some interesting technology. Allows them to, without using rifts or magic, pop robot armors and power armors just out of nowhere to defend the ghost stage. And like, even if you take them down, which they don't seem they're that much tougher than anything we've got here that we've dealt with before, they're teleporting them right back, probably so we don't get their teleportation technology. But we don't even know how many forces they have to defend this ghost cage. Since they're just popping out of nowhere, they could have a huge supply of them. So it's certainly going to be interesting. But we're probably
you guys would be able to watch the video as well.
I would probably have them assign them to watch the video, and if they have any questions, they can talk to the tech guys, just so they get an idea what we're up against.
Not magnetic, whatever it is.
Say what now? What was that, Adam?
Oh, it has some way to stop from getting a magnetic bomb strapped to itself.
Yep, it would seem. Now again, like this is some of the video was from quite a ways away, but things can be extrapolated from what it looked like they were trying.
Yeah, man, it could have some sort of field like that. I've heard the Naruni have some force fields of some sort. I don't know if they can do what this thing did, but they did detect some sort of energy signature maybe around it, so it might.
The techs would say that they're familiar with the Naruni fields. They kind of look at each other like, I don't know if we should be saying this, but like that, we're familiar, we've worked on them, and they're not, they wouldn't have had the anti-magnetic properties, and depending upon how gently the mine was thrown, it might have bypassed the field entirely. Those Naruni fields are they're kind of like a tension bubble. If you poke it real hard, it won't break, but if you just slowly push through, it's about as useful as butter.
Sure. I guess that makes sense.
That's at least the way they explain it. They don't think an anti-magnetic property, but who knows? I mean, might be greasy or something.
We're
might be
clearly dealing with some folks that aren't normally found around these parts. So we could be up for
if
anything.
they are, they keep well hidden.
Yeah.
So like you would be told, like Mr. Royal would lay out, that you have access to some varied forces. Your own ogre robot is going to be more or less useless in terms of combat, but it could potentially be used for excavation, setting up traps. Your robot and power armor team, I renamed. So there's Erica McCormick, the ogre pilot, and then there's Kylie Marsh, who's she's the RPA pilot. She's the power armor pilot.
Okay.
Skid mark. Just because for retcon for her name. But and then you did bring along, I believe, Oscar and Martina.
Yep.
The technicians so they would kind of like tell you that like the ogre, like you could use it for, construction and excavation, if you need to like dig a pit trap or something. The Spider Skull Walker that they have here, that the capture team has, is it's not like they're like in confidence. They tell you it wouldn't take much to get it up and running at almost 100%. But like right now, it's lucky to stand up out of the water.
Well,
They could easily fix it with some fabrication in they've got the engineering bay and the ogre. They could do some basic fabrication to make the parts to fix it, but they don't want to tell anyone. And the Samsons that the capture team has, I believe, are only armed with mostly non-lethal.
okay.
They've got an anti-personnel. Yeah, they've got an anti-personnel laser, but other than that, they've got a neural disruptor rifle. So they're fast, but they're not really going to be that good of a assault force.
Well, this canyon area that they fly through, I'm assuming it's way too wide to try to like have some sort of trap to like dump rocks in front of them when they weren't expecting it. I'm sure it's way too wide for that, right?
Yeah, it's like it's like a valley.
Yeah.
Yeah. You could pretend like you would know that like the sort of the line that it follows is fairly consistent enough that if you dug a big enough pit trap, it would go over a specific area. The path it travels is like, I don't know, what's 24 inches. That's about 4 inches wide, on the map, as the travel goes, so 24 feet either way.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it is pretty wide open, and there's not really a lot of cover around here. Now you could potentially make some cover because there's a lot of rock and gravel and boulders and stuff, but Junaluska is also, obviously going to be involved. And he has at his disposal a team of just like straight up mages who are like, battle magi and things like that. Sort of like, the combat type magicians. And then there's a team with mystics who are more kind of like, kind of buffers and healers. I didn't really want to make like 15 different characters sheets,
No.
so I kind of have them generalized into
Yep.
2 different groups.
Yep, makes sense. That's the way to do
And
it.
and if if you have a power that you want prepared for them to use or for something, then we can figure out whether or not they have that, and I can just put it on the collector sheet.
Well, I would want to know if any of them have any powers that could slow the ghost coach down. That's or bring it to a halt.
Could bring it to a halt, slow it, if not bring it to a halt.
Just to give us more time to deal with it. I'm out of character. I'm thinking things, like mega entangles that might be able to work on robots.
Yeah, and I'm looking.
We don't know exactly where the pilots are in there, if there even is a human pilot on there, but can they?
What would come in handy? Electrical drain.
Yeah.
Yeah, and once like we can assume that Midnight is being consulted on that for anything that's relevant for that type of planning.
Just very worried that him getting too close and getting fried by it like that one guy did. So.
Yeah. And upon multiple watchings of the guy that tried to jump onto it, it's not certain. No, like the techs aren't sure if it's smoke of him burning before he flies off, or if it's maybe like dust. But whatever the case, when you try to jump off of something at 90 to 100 miles an hour and miss,
yeah,
there's not much left.
Force fields and things. I just if there's better ways than him going up and trying to touch it and drain its power, try to use that. First.
Yes. The Mystic, the both of the Junaluska teams do say that they have some options. They could maybe do they could do a couple like triggered entangle rituals, like you said, mega entangle. A few do a few of those as a ritual in places where you're to slow down the what's it called, the stage maybe, as well as doing it periodically on the fly to the robots. Maybe trying to coordinate some strategy so they can, when one pops in, they have several areas kind of already, they have some ideas on what they can do. It'll be they all say it'll be a lot easier to slow down the robots than the stage, with it being some sort of floating object.
Carpet of adhesion's not gonna do it, but some sort of
No
webbing or some sort of rock encasing if they've got that kind of trapping on any of their powers.
One of them does think that they might be able to use one of their elemental bending techniques. Basically their version of sloth, which more or less like blows against whichever direction you're going. That might work on it. They're not sure though. So we'll kind of play that one by ear. But I'm writing down a lot of these things so that we can kind of make preparations.
Mary, Spike, you have any wild ideas?
Not really. Numbers wouldn't put. The best I can do is give numbers, really. And those wouldn't really help that much against this thing.
Not at first. Unless you can get a giant army of undead like gargoyles or something to like just dogpile on it and see what happens.
Well, you know where a bunch of
No.
gargoyle cults are? No, I didn't think so. Darn.
Okay. Well, how? I mean, Barrett's fish. This may go against your morals, but it really depends on whether or not you want to deal with infernal powers, because the mage team definitely has a shifter, and that shifter knows people. It's just that most of those people tend to live in places that are entirely on fire and have horns. I'm talking about the places having horns.
I was gonna say, I was like, is this place on horns?
Absolutely. I mean, yes. Everything has horns when you're in hell.
I'm absolutely certain their shifter could summon some, Balrog like creature in there to, and I'm gonna leave Junaluska up to decide that. I don't want to know because then I can.
He would chuckle. He would chuckle. Like in case of that, like he would chuckle and say, "Of course you don't want it."
The cybernetic, the ignorance is the perfect example.
But he says, "I'll see what I can do. If nothing else, I'm sure he can bargain for some bodies." Just talking about, he's at least aware enough of what Mary can do to know that she can raise skeletons and zombies and stuff. So he would,
Ironically, for once, zombies would be, if we're just trying to stop something, zombies would have considerably more mass than skeletons.
Yeah, you have to
potentially, yeah. I mean, that is true. They would potentially not be as adept, but they would. Yes, that's very true.
The one time that zombies are better than skeletons.
Well, and I mean, Mr. Royal would have mentioned to Barrett's fish fairly, like after Junaluska would have stormed out, and while the techs were on their coffee break, he would have mentioned that like he doesn't really he doesn't there's no guarantees on this mission, and he doesn't expect everyone to come back alive, but that like your team isn't necessarily the team that's supposed to be like, you're not here for fame and glory. You're here because, well, you
it's
have no
like
choice.
basically, yeah. We helped them do this thing, and they're going to slaughter a bunch of innocent people, that kind of thing. So
kind of,
it's kind of that level.
And he would
of
also
thing.
say that like he would also mention that like as you could see from the recordings, there are locals in the area, and some of the locals totally know about this and just don't care because they know not to get close.
Mm-hmm.
They know to leave a wide berth, and it's not like and from what they've seen, the robots don't appear when like a deer runs across the path while the stagecoach is out there. So there seems to be some sort of like primitive recognition there, maybe advanced recognition, not sure.
Oh well, I think we're gonna have to just to prep as many of those things as we can. And people that have their specialties, what they think they can bring to it, Barry's fish is getting better at this leading thing, but he doesn't have the expertise here, so he threw out some ideas, and he's gonna just have to let the people come up with some stuff for him. Later in the evening here, before plenty of time before people will start thinking about going to bed or anything, I want to try to get Junaluska one-on-one, and basically I want to try to convince him that this is, even if it's a long shot, that this is not what you need to be doing. We could just get out of here tonight, and we can try to pick up the pieces. We don't need to be fighting anymore. So
he would look at you. I guess why don't you? I mean, you're trying to persuade. Why don't you make a persuade roll?
Yeah.
To see how persuasive you are.
Let's give it a shot. Do you want me to put a penalty in there for his disposition or the fact that he's my enemy or anything?
I'm gonna look at I'm looking at where his disposition is. You won't have a penalty. It will just be
how far
essentially against.
How far I can move it one way.
How quick you can.
Okay, let's make.
Because I mean, he's unfriendly at best and hostile at worst. So
like he's my enemy. I'm also like a pacifist. I don't want to have to fight him or kill him, and I don't really want to attack this thing either. So I'm trying to the last chance to try to find a peaceful way. You know what? I'm going to use my conviction on this.
Word.
Because this is pretty important for him to at least try to find a different way out of the situation than actually like robbing this ghost stage with these guys. All right, persuasion. And that's not even with the extra D6.
Add your add your D6. Oh yeah, the wild die is the D6. So 25.
Oh yeah, 20.
So that's
yeah, 25. Yeah, I don't need to roll this.
Okay. So.
Well then, I think you were very persuasive.
You don't.
I even though we disagreed with him going and fighting on the side of Tolkien, I understand why he did it, and like we've gone different ways, but we're still family, we can do better. I can learn to listen more. I'm not thinking I'm always all correct in my decision not to get involved and all that, and I go through that whole kind of story. And how does he respond to that?
He said, "Yeah." He's gonna like for almost a full minute. He kind of just like his eyes kind of like glaze over, and he kind of like looks through you, like through you, like 1,000-yard stare. Like he's kind of like just lost in thought for a second, and then he says, "There's no way for the rest of us to get out, but you and your team." Just keep everyone out of the way. you want to do things your way, then make sure you and your team keep everyone else safe. And those of us who don't care about that, we'll do what we do best.
All right. Well,
we'll kind of see what happens after.
Well, if you make it through this, I want you to come talk to me about, seeing about, maybe coming back and taking at least another look at maybe doing it my way in the future. I can't expect everything, to change overnight. So.
And
we'll try to stay out of the way.
He nods and said, he nods and says, "We will talk after. We will talk after, but do it your way."
Okay.
So Junaluska. So that was now that's just this one interaction. He's still your enemy.
Oh no, it's gonna take a lot more to get rid. You can't just buy off an edge with a roll like that.
You definitely spoke logic to him, and he doesn't particularly want to die, and he definitely saw what happened there.
Oh. Barry's fish finally swallowed his own pride and actually tried to reach out in a nice way finally to him after all these years. So. And did it all right without stumbling over his words. So. Anyway, moving on.
So, all right, yes. Shifter was going to get bodies for Mary, so consider kind of what you would like in terms of that. And because you have some time, because I'll have to make up whatever kind of, I'll have to figure out template. Spike, you had started saying something a while back.
In terms of prepping?
Yes.
Let's see. First of all, have we been getting paid? I don't think I have any money saved, but
as far as money is concerned, if you need something for this mission, Mr. Royal is your accountant. So
if they've got
he's got most of the things taken care of. So if it's pretty conventional, we can assume that you've got it. If it's something special, ask me what it is, and we'll see what the chances are that it's available.
Okay.
It also depends on what kind of credits they take out here. If they even
even can take it. Truth or consequence. Well, Mr. Royal has some quote unquote credit with Truth or Consequences and Fort Apache. That's basically why he was sending everyone on jobs, was to essentially get some local currency to make preparations. So that's, but again, is it available, and is it,
yeah, I can't think of anything that I would think to. Do they sell EMPs?
Those are always good.
Or even EMP grenades?
You want some sort of EMP device?
Yeah. I mean, they got robots, right?
I mean, they are robots, or they are robotic devices of some variety for sure.
Whatever it is, at some level there's robots, at some level there's shit that gets shut down. Is there a grenade thing? Is that a thing?
EMP grenade? I don't know if they're anything like that statted up or anything.
There isn't anything statted up, but we could potentially.
Yeah, I don't know how common that kind of technology even is in looking at the old Palladium books.
It's like, well, here's the thing. It's not that common, but you're also next door to Fort Apache. So like that kind of Fort Apache is definitely a high tech. They've got like OG Samuses. They've got OG pre-riff stuff. So actually Fort Apache would have access to some stuff, but like right now the closest they could do is try to overcharge some of the non-lethal rifles. Essentially like electro blasters.
Okay.
They would maybe be able to do that, but they don't really grenadize it.
Okay. I can't really think of anything.
I mean, you know when it's coming, and you know the route. So any sort of like, you know, trapped.
You could get some Psy Cola.
I don't know that I can.
Yeah.
Or that it even doesn't.
Say what, Brandon?
Nothing. I could we make, if they can't grenade it, could they set it up as like a trip fire bomb, EMP bomb?
They could probably to make it go off sort of all at once, but they've only got maybe like a dozen of these rifles. They have conventional mines, and they have conventional mines and explosives and stuff, but that is pretty meta tech.
Well, set some mine.
Okay, you like well, how about this? Can you see the page?
Make that decision myself.
Well, no, but yeah, if we're gonna set up mines, we can. Oscar is a demolitionist, so your repair guy is a demolitionist. So I wanted to make sure. I think.
Did we just lose Brandon as well?
What?
Oh, you're there.
Yeah, Oscar, your electrical engineer, is an expert demolitionist, so he can actually set up bombs if you need to.
Well, commanding officer, you want those in mind? And harvest some explosions.
Set up a little sensor that when the ghost stage gets to a certain point, it fires the overcharged non-lethal guns to maybe disrupt the energy fields around it. Yeah, it's worth a shot.
I call them explosion seeds.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let an explosion grows.
Yeah.
So Oscar will do that. He'll work on refitting some of them. Again, there's only like a dozen of these rifles. So why don't you, like, Mel? You can draw. You're on the page. You can draw, right?
I should be able to draw. Yeah.
Why don't you make some dots where you would kind of like those, like whether either like all in one place or kind of at various places along the line.
And what's the scale on here?
It's I would say each square is somewhere between 1 mile to 2 miles ish. You know, like again, it's not exact. This is going to be like a 45. It's going to be like 45 to 60 mile path. Like,
all right. Well, for ease sake, we'll just say one grid is 1 mile, but that this is just a snapshot of the area.
Sure. Yeah, that's a good call. That works. Yeah. Because it's probably going to work as a chase, and then essentially these things are going to come up at intervals potentially if you're setting traps and stuff.
Which one of these they're going to be coming from the east or from the west?
They're coming from the east to the west.
All right, so we're going to be chasing them down there at one of these kind of corners. If there's a bit of cover, like where maybe it's a little steeper, so that it's a little harder for them to happen to detect any little trap that we set up to fire these guns on them. If we say that's one of them, probably right around that corner, we'd set some of these traps up. We'd put one there, and as they come around that corner, and maybe even at this one too. Let's just put a couple. We don't have a whole bunch of them, so we'll set those up there.
So maybe like a half dozen at each. So, because like I said, there's about 6 of them, and they're, again, this is kind of a MacGyver thing, but it was a good idea, so we're rolling with it.
You got 6 of these devices we can set up. You said
there are 12 in total. There were essentially 6 Samson power armors, and they each had 2 rifles.
Okay, but I think so, each one of these traps is probably need to have a couple of them each. So maybe so that we have a few more opportunities to actually hit.
Basically, okay, yeah, okay.
Yeah, so maybe if you got 12 of these that we could rig up, we put 3 in bundle. That makes 4 bundles of these, and then that gives us 4 opportunities with a little bit more coverage, because we don't know exactly the line they're going to fire on. I don't know if we can get the guns to track them. We're going to be probably firing them mostly randomly, hopefully around where we think they're going to be.
Yeah, and he thinks he can set them up to be triggered by a specific. He thinks he can add like just some real basic recognition software into their trigger, so that it should. He thinks he can set it up to trigger only for unknown profiles. So it shouldn't trigger for any of the vehicles that you guys would potentially be using, but it'll trigger for anything it doesn't recognize.
Yeah.
Is what he's going to try to do.
It's worth a shot. We got the fly by if it triggers, then there's 3 bolts of overcharged, hopefully slightly disabling systems. Maybe one of them hits each time, if we're lucky. Of the 3 shots.
And that'll be, yeah. Okay.
We can only hope.
You have a fairly substantial supply of conventional mines.
No, I don't want to use any of that stuff. I don't know who these people are. I'm a pacifist. I'm not gonna use like big explosives on them if I don't have to. So if somebody else wants to pick those, I don't want to use them. I'd have to be convinced.
We could put them on the conventional mines, aka conventional mines tend to be. Are they ones that can be made so that the explosion head shaped? That's it. Shaped in a direction.
They're basically just going to be in one spot, and they're going to, whenever it gets triggered, there's going to be a burst template around wherever it is, for the most part. You could potentially try to shape the charge so it goes in like a cone or something.
I was thinking of doing bombies with some of the bodies that I'll be getting.
Yeah. You can if you want to use bombies, I trust you to use those explosives and somebody else setting up some mines and we hurt somebody accidentally.
I walk around, so yeah, I prefer not to have mines just laying around.
Yes, well, they do, like, most of the mines are like anti-vehicle mines.
Yeah, that's nice.
The only things that you're really up against are things that weigh probably a half ton or more. So for the most part, people aren't going to trigger the mines that they've acquired for you, but that's, most of the time.
So Spike should, if he can get enough bodies, set up some bombies along the path that can, if they don't just get completely smashed when the thing runs over them, detonate those.
Yep.
And it's a little bit more mobile than just planting a mine on the ground. If we're off on one of the paths that they're going, the bomb can maybe move in front of it and before it detonates.
Yep. And plus, you can have the bombies activate themselves if they're close enough.
So we can set some bombies up. Like, how many bombies do you think we're gonna be able to get?
I'm not sure. I'm working on the I'm working on the networking behind the scenes. And what kind of were you just looking for normal people, or were you looking for something special? Like,
at first I was like thinking like maybe like how many mines? I mean, if we could just, outfit numbers with mines, just moving mines is terrifying.
Yeah, moving mines. And if they were I'm drawing orange here, if we can get like
at first I was thinking bigger things that could, just like hold off the robots maybe. But anti-vehicle mines are anti-vehicle mines, and
you can probably like Mr. Royal thinks he can get you 10 anti-vehicle mines.
That's a decent amount.
And
that maybe
as long as the EMP bombs don't take him that long to rig up, Oscar thinks he could also probably make you just some conventional, like, plastic explosives, like just, or dynamite.
Oh, we should probably ask, how intact do they want the carriage to be?
I'm sure they want it to be pretty. They want the contents, right?
They want the contents, but from what you understand, it's filled with gold. And,
if that gets a little blown up,
be vaporized, but if gold melts, well, it just runs and it resolidifies. So
cleanup's a little bit more difficult.
Exactly. So yes, it's since it's filled with gold, it's not, that's supposedly what you're going after, gold. So
I keep drawing like squares, and I'm picking the wrong tool. Freehand. There we go. So, it's not quite an EMP, but you get what I'm. That's the.
Yes. No, that works, and I like it. It's good. So 3 sets of bombies, like what, 3 each?
Yeah, if you got like 10, you can do like 3, 4, and 3 or something like that.
3.
That way we have plenty of coverage, so at least 1 or 2 of them maybe can get in front of the thing.
Yeah. And Junaluska is kind of listening in on some of this, and he mentions that,
if he's got,
if you could get one of those, if you could get one of those crazy things to grab one of the robots, you might be able to take out one of the robots with those things.
Yeah, whatever his shifter wants to put in the way down here to,
Yeah, why don't you put a spot and just put shifter, or put
well, I almost want that to be has he just got like the one like shifter?
There's just one shifter. Yeah, there's just one shifter, but she's pretty badass. She's high. I mean, she's not. She's like, a veteran at least, so she can do some crazy shit. And she was able to find she's probably able to find a fair number of human quote unquote human bodies. But yeah, again, so was it just human bodies, Adam, or?
I guess, because I doubt they'd be able to grab any. Plus, I probably wouldn't be able to also raise bigger things that could survive an attack from one of the robots.
Whatever the shifter wants to do, they can do it right there.
Yeah.
If we haven't already slowed it down by then, whatever horrible demon they want to summon or to have there.
Yeah, Mary's plan is Plan Bombi, I guess.
Plan Bombi? Okay. I will get some Bombi set up with
I will be robot horsing and trying to disrupt it with my abilities.
I was thinking about just like standing in the way, being intangible, but they would probably hit me. I don't know.
Well, your intangibility is only affected by arcane things. Like, you're not sure, but the scientists are fairly certain that these things are entirely technological.
You could get inside. You could just like get in front of it, like the second Matrix movie, like the ghosts did.
Yeah, that's what I was
thinking. Just like solidify inside.
That's kind of what I was thinking.
Yeah. Do you want to Do you want to be on ride on my horse, and I'll try to like get you in front of it, and you can just jump off and like go right through the front of it?
Yeah.
My
That
horse
sounds
should be able to keep up with this thing. It goes pretty fast.
Yes, it seems like it clips along. Its normal pace seems to be between 40 and 60 miles an hour, but it does sometimes tend to speed up and take evasive maneuver once things get close. But you should probably your horse is 70, 75, so you should.
Yeah, and I would probably start as soon as possible getting in on the action. So let me probably after the first EMP, hopefully. So somewhere in there is Sir Barry's fish.
Okay.
And Spike will be there too. So and we'll try to get you on as soon as possible. But
let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Wild card, bitches.
Yeah, and we're gonna have Midnight, going around disabling stuff as much as possible. If you can keep up and disable the car, but it'd probably be easier for him to disable the robots first, and maybe they won't be able to teleport back if we get them disabled quick enough. That's what I'm thinking.
Okay, so you have the shifter down there.
Yeah.
Where would you like to place sort of like the mage team and the mystic team? You will have access to some competent drivers and some, various vehicles. Nothing extreme, but, hover cars and hover bikes.
Well, just in case at some point we can't keep up, I think that's when our slightly more passive way isn't working, and then we want to let the combat mages do their thing. So after this first set of bombies, let me switch to combat mages. And they got another set of them. They can mix them however they want to, but they can divide up and do their thing.
Fair enough. Yeah. Cool. That works. The Mystics will potentially have, the Mystic team is a lot more about healing and buffing.
Yeah.
They will potentially be helping with some of the preparation and the rituals. They'll probably ask what kind of rituals and stuff you would like to prepare.
I want to slow these things down so that we don't have to chase it down and get your gold.
Okay.
So I said, if you want to blast it, or if you want to try to entangle it or slow it down, whatever you got.
Okay, so yeah, you got 9 humans. Got 9 human zombies. So you'll have 1 spare anti-vehicular mine. It's not something you can put in your back pocket, but
yeah,
I've got a couple skeletons on my own.
Say what?
I've got a couple skeletons of my own.
Okay, if you want another one, yeah, because you were able to get 9 skeletons.
Yeah,
is what I figured on the networking here.
Because I've got in the trunk. I've got 5 skeletons from back during the vampire thing, I think.
The plans will all fall apart as soon as the actual fight starts. But
yeah,
but I can imagine Midnight or some other flying vehicle we've got just dropping your other one right on top of the stagecoach with the other anti-vehicle mine and just like shape charge it right into the roof. This is assuming that we don't already have a Spike inside, and we, at that point.
Oh, I did forget. There is one other person in addition to the mage teams. He was introduced to the rest of the party in the last session. But his name's Elfriok, and he's kind of like a winged humanoid. He's a winged human,
So
more or less, some sort of like some sort of angel type person. And he has wings and he throws a spear. So he can potentially help. He's pretty much the only other person in this whole endeavor that's like not a scumbag besides these guys.
okay. Yeah.
That's why he got sent with the party, because he didn't want to do the sinister shit that the other errand, he didn't want to do the other errands. So
Okay. Well,
he's pretty arrogant, but he can throw a spear and it comes back to him. So
Sir Barry's
he
fish.
can fly too.
Sir Barry's fish. If there's something I'm missing, it would be something that my own human brain can't remember. So I'm gonna roll this battle, and if there's something else you think I would know that I'm doing wrong here, that would help out. We can let the dice
that's
say.
cool. Yeah, I will. I'm gonna look a little bit, because I'm gonna use battle here, and I'm gonna use C-131, because this won't be a mass. Well, I mean, this will be kind of a little bit of a mass battle and a little bit of a chase.
Yeah, I'm just saying, if there's any tactics that I have wrong here after I look at the crudely drawn map that I have of where we're gonna place things with the resources that I think we have.
Yeah. You do have skid marks still in a Bandito, the Sidewinder. Although, I mean, who's to say you want her out there risking her life?
If necessary, she should just kind of follow along on with the ghost thing from a distance, and then come in if we need her. So you can fly, fly nearby out of firing range. If they have anything, and get involved if
she's got missiles and a grenade launcher too. That's kind of what the Bandito, the Sidewinder has.
Yep.
So
she can she can just kind of follow along and get involved if we need her.
She does say she's like real arrogant, like not overconfident, but really arrogant. She says, if you and she kind of overhears you talking about the bomb beast. She says, "I'll drop it. Okay, I'll carry it and drop it."
Okay, works.
And she kind of laughs and she says, "I never imagined I'd be doing this. Thanks, guys."
Fantastic. Sounds good to me.
And she's since I kind of retconned her a little bit, she's missing one eye, so she's got like an eye patch, but like her power armor is set up so that like she has no problems. But yeah, she has like no depth perception out of the power armor, so she trips over everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it'll be fine. It'll be fun.
I'm trying to think. Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
no, I think that
I mean, yeah, battle wise, I mean, the vehicle, like the hover stage is definitely a hover thing, so pitfalls aren't going to be as bad for that. But for the big robot, pitfalls could be potentially devastating. The smaller robots can fly, so probably not as much, but that's about,
Sir Barry's Fish's math doesn't know how much wear and tear we're going to put on the ogre for the chance that the robot happens to hit one of our pits that we traps. So Barry's Fish doesn't think that's actually going to be worth the time to have the ogre dig some pits. So they could be devastating, but I think that he's thinking the percentage chance of actually impacting.
Sure. You'd have to. I guess you'd have to dig a lot of pits.
It'd be a lot of them potentially, and we need that ogre. That's kind of one of our main transportations back. We kind of ride along in that thing a lot of times.
Yeah, I'm trying to think what else here.
I mean, that nine just could just mean that my plan isn't terrible. So I was like,
yeah, your plan's not terrible at all. You think that like let's just say that you have a good enough plan that you have a flexible enough plan that it should adapt. And I'm trying to think like.
With this length, do we have enough? That's only. We probably have enough radio to make sure if something changes at the front end of this ambush path that we can radio with the end.
Yes.
Need to change
the ogre with its extended communications package can take the high ground and basically be relay digital communications.
So that's a good place for the ogre then to be kind of out of the way there. Because we're kind of down in a valley, so around some of these corners we might get some line of sight blocking from that working without the.
Yeah, and then the Mystic team also is going to do some floating mine links as well.
Well, that's the best we're gonna get, guys. What do you think?
I don't know.
And I show them this just chicken scratches that I put on this piece of paper. Okay, Mary doesn't know. That means we're good. I think we're good then. Mary actually had an opinion, so
boy.
so I think we're all right.
And it involves bombies.
Yeah, it involves bombies. Mary's happy.
I think the best. It's the most classic trap of all time. A spike in the road.
Spike in the road.
So you're gonna ride with Barry's fish potentially, and like when you get close.
Yeah, I'm imagining if in my head, like, you know, this first set of EMP gun things that we've rigged up, you know, slow it down so it's not too hard for me to get my horse in front. Spike hops off the back, goes intangible, floats right through, and is inside with the gold, hopefully, or at least could tell us maybe there's not gold in there right away, that we should just like abandon the mission because it's not what we thought. We don't want to deal with it, and you can get out of there safely. So, next time we will have the big, super exciting, massive chase after the ghost stage. But in the meantime, you should definitely go check out the Savage Worlds role-playing game system. If you already haven't at this point, go over to peginc.com and order yourself a PDF of the Savage Worlds core rules, or you can get a physical copy. The second printing is out. Should be out now, I believe, or very soon, with some updated rules in that. If you want a physical copy, I may get a second copy myself so I can get all the errata in there. And then while you're there, go get yourself some Riffs for Savage Worlds PDFs or books too. Everything over there. If you just want to get started, get yourself the Player's Guide, the Tomorrow Leader Player's Guide. A couple other books there if you want to run it too. So check that out. And then for all the great things about Riffs, including a lot more setting decal and other stuff that you can convert yourself, go over to palladiumbooks.com. And this has been Riffs for Savage Worlds, played over Roll20 at roll20.net. See you next time. Have a great week, everybody.
Bye.